Grand final weekend is here for the RAA, NPL and the State Leagues in South Australia. In the State League 2 sees Western Strikers getting a second chance at the championship as they'll be taking on Salisbury United, the premiers of the State League 2. In the State League 1 we'll see another game where promotion is not on the line. Adelaide Croatia Raiders and Para Hills Knights will be in the NPL next year, but they'll be facing off for silverware. But Friday night, the big one, where a new champion will be crowned. 5th place Modbury Jets taking on Adelaide United in their very first grand final appearance in a top flight league. In South Australia, it's going to be huge. Thank you for joining me and welcome to Kicking It Local Grand Final Edition. I'm your host, Johnny Kecko, and alongside me, I'm joined by two guys that have spent a lot of time across many games in South Australia. I'm talking about Front Page Football's Christian Marchetti and Antonis Pagonis. Boys, it's good to have you here for this big week in local football.
Good to be here, Johnny. It's a huge week, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these games play out. 3 fantastic games. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Christian, you've been to heaps this year as well, but yeah. How exciting is it to have these 3 big games on the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the headline one's the NPL Grand Final, and it's still a little bit surprising to see the 2 teams that have made it in the end, particularly where we were maybe 4 weeks ago, and with the way the regular season was playing out. But then as well, Western Strikers back in the State League 2 Grand Final and getting promoted is good, and Raiders is also a great story, of course. Them back in the NPL, so lots to look forward to.
Well, boys, there's a lot to get through. We're going to preview the State Leagues and also the NPL Grand Final as well, which is proudly presented by Service FM. A lot to get through today, but let's go straight into the weekend. There's been some big surprises in the semi-finals leading up. We'll go to the NPL semi-finals because that's where all the big surprises happened, where first and second, in Metro Stars and Campbelltown City, the 2 big players of this season both knocked out in the semi-finals. How huge is that? I don't think any of us expected that in this room.
Yeah, I think all of us kind of expected a repeat of the Federation Cup final, Campbelltown, Metro Stars. Can Campbelltown overcome Metro Stars? But we saw both first legs were a bit iffy for both these strong clubs. Campbelltown obviously falling short against Adelaide United. And then you had Metro Stars needing 2 injury time winners to overcome Modbury. So we knew it was going to be a battle in the second leg, but for both sides to win as convincingly as they did was really a shock for me, at least.
Yeah. What about you, Christian? Sorry, you are Antonis. Christian, what about you? How did you find the weekend?
That's a first. I don't think anyone has mistaken us appearance wise before. But the shocking thing was, one upset, okay. But for both to actually end like that was like, wow. Because we were at both games.
Yep.
And the first one, you're thinking, okay, Campbelltown looked like they just ran out of legs. Adelaide were too strong and, credit to them. But then you thought, okay, Metro's going to get the job done. They kind of, particularly their first leg, when a team scores 2 late goals like that, you think in Modbury are going to be kind of crushed by that going into the second leg. And we're going to talk, I guess, a little bit about it in a moment, but the resilience and the mental fortitude of that team is superb, and they showed that in the second leg.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think just something to add that Metro Stars hasn't lost since April.
Yep.
It's not like they were in a decent run. They looked almost invincible this season, and for them to get done like that on home soil was just something to behold. It was a strange feeling being there.
Well, going into this, I actually, with the new format, I thought with the way it goes, the week off for 1 and 2, I said there's going to be at least one big surprise coming into this, which I didn't expect to see both, to be honest. And the way they played out as well, I did not expect to see that. But it's good to see, looking forward to seeing how they both go into this game, because now we all predicted going into the semi-finals, what the final was going to look like, the grand final, thinking it was going to be Campbelltown and Adelaide, Campbelltown and Metro Stars. Mm-hmm. Now they're not there. I don't think any of us are prepared to have an idea what we're going to expect going into that game. But talking about the actual semi-finals, though, some of your standouts. Who were some of your standouts in that game, in those 2 games? Because I know for me, watching, didn't get to watch it live. The Metro Stars game. I was on my way home, but the Stephen Hall, goalkeeper for Adelaide United. absolutely lit the game alight, didn't he?
Mhm. Oh, he was fantastic. And just the situation, having to step in for Ethan Cox has gone with the Olyroos and to pull off that performance. Another one that we spoke about on the day, a couple of them, Ryan White, who actually played for Parry Hills last year, so he'd be happy to see his side, his old side coming back up to the NPL. After missing an early chance, going and scoring 2 goals, and all the conversation's been about the A-League boys dropping down, but it's actually like an NPL boy that gets the job done. So that was great to see him grab a couple of goals after an early miss. And another one that I think me and Andrew Popovich spent more time talking about and commentating, Giuseppe Bovalina had an absolutely magnificent game on Saturday and even got a goal for himself. And I'd love to see those GPS stats because he felt like he just didn't stop running that day.
We could talk about the semi-finals for so long, but we got a lot to get through as well. We got to go into the previews of the state leagues because, well, it's been some great performances from these clubs over the course of the year. And we'll talk about the State League 2 final first. Salisbury United, standouts, haven't they been? I don't think many people expected them to take out the league the way they did, but Matt Gaston and his team, they were unstoppable, weren't they?
Yeah, it's not a league I get around as much as I hoped with all the other commitments, but they've really been a standout.
You get around a lot, don't you?
You try your best.
You even go to under 10s West Adelaide games as
my
well.
cousin's playing, I can't say no. But yeah, they've really been a standout, and it's just a very good club. And it's a club that it's similar to the Modbury Jets, that really attract fans. It's a really strong community.
Was it free entry on the weekend?
I think they did something like that. But like they've got like those theme days that they've done as well. So any club that gets a community behind it like that, you always like to see come up the division. So congratulations to them, and I'm looking forward to seeing them play next year. But it should be a really exciting grand final.
It should, and they're against Western Strikers, who, well, we know last year it was probably one of the best State League grand finals we've seen in a long time. Not for them though, because they unfortunately lost to Vipers, and in that game was promotion playoff. But they got the promotion playoff. They can not stress about that now and go into this grand final. What are you expecting to see from them? They got a new coach now as well in the last few games. What are you expecting to see from Western Strikers?
Yeah, it should be interesting. I think Salisbury have been kind of. I think Raiders are similar, where they've just been so like focused on the job, determined from almost like match day one.
Yep.
You know, you knew they were kind of going to get promoted, sort of thing. So yeah, Western Strikers. It's different, right? Because obviously last year when they played the grand final, it was to get promoted. Now they're going to go into it with, without that pressure, so they can play maybe the game a bit more freely, maybe try and get on the front foot a bit more. So yeah, and I don't know if we want to talk a little bit about the grand finals in themselves, because I think, we're talking a little bit and maybe there's nothing at stake, but maybe you could also say now that both teams, or all 4 teams across both grand finals are already promoted, they can actually go into it and say, let's actually win silverware for the club.
Absolutely.
So there's a little bit of spice to it still, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's going to be exciting about it.
And I guess that pride comes into it. You want to win that cup for your club after a season like that. I think with the current system where I guess a bit of the awkwardness comes in is the semi-finals for those premiers trying to get up for that. I think, and again, it's not something we're going to spend too long to talk about, but everyone's got an opinion on it. I think having every grand final playing, not just for a cup, but for that promotion, adds to that intrigue that, you get everything you can to get people on board. And I think both sides not being relaxed and just saying, oh, we'll win the trophy, but we're still going to be up and playing for their lives can be very exciting, just as we saw last year in both those State League grand finals last year.
Yeah, but, the other case as well with State League 1 is another big game as well. Alec Croatia Raiders and Parry Hills Knights. They're both going to be in the NPL next year, so can't wait to see them in the RAA NPL. But we get to see them this weekend. Silverware's on the line. What are you expecting to see from Theo's team and also Vlado in his first year back at Alec Croatia Raiders as head coach? It's going to be an exciting matchup.
Yeah, State League 1 was just one of those leagues that half the teams could have almost got automatic promotion this last couple of weeks. But I feel
3 in the last game.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like Croatia and Parry Hills were the 2 clubs that stood out for me during the year. They've got 2 very exciting young players in Danasian Yankuru at Croatia and Riley Stam at Parry Hills. Very excited for them to see how they fare in the NPL next year. But yeah, it's 2 deserving clubs that not only for a grand final, but for an opportunity at the top flight. They've both tried to get there the last couple of years after going down.
Yep.
And it's good to see 2 very good clubs back at the big time.
It's going to be big. What are you expecting from both sides there, and Christian as well?
Yeah, well, we saw Raiders on Friday. I mean, they just got so much quality. Like, you know, even guys like Joey Costa and Ricky Da Silva. I mean, like the technical quality of those guys is still very much at an NPL level, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned Yon Kuru and these guys. I mean, they got heaps of pace as well. And yeah,
Gus Williams.
Yeah. Of course,
Who moved there from Adelaide City.
Callum Campbell. It's a very talented team.
Yeah.
And even that game on Friday, I don't think they played that well, but they still created like so many chances because you just got so much quality in the team. And then quick one on Para Hills and Theo as well. Just a quick little story. He was actually, when I did my C license for coaching, he was one of the instructors. So you got an insight into kind of how he operates. So yeah, very, very tactical, very detailed. So yeah, not surprised to see them, back in the top flight. Yeah.
Yep, it's going to be a big game. I can't wait. Predictions for those two? It's going to be a hard one, or should we not? Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a hard one. I actually think one of them is going to go in extra time, and I think that might be the State League 1 grand final.
Okay.
Raiders and Para Hills, I think will go into extra time, but that's all. Yeah, it's going to be, I can't wait to see how that all plans out. But yeah, it's going to be great storylines, which leads us into the next part as well, because storylines of the season, there's so many great storylines that have happened in 2023, and well, leading into this grand final as well, I reckon one of the best storylines is Modbury Jets from being promoted last season. They missed out on the grand final in the State League 1, but now they're in the NPL grand final the year later. Not expected, I don't think, especially finishing 5th on the ladder. But what other storylines are there that have been written this season for you boys?
It's really that you can't go past that. You don't really see a side coming up to a division and going straight up big time. And credit has to go out to Morris and all of his players because it's been a phenomenal season, especially how they've gone about scoring their goals.
Any storylines stick out for you, Christian?
Yeah, look, I think you can't go past Modbury. I think Morris though, specifically what he's done, I think it was the first year in the job they were kind of in the mix for promotion to the NPL. Then obviously just completely blew everyone away last year. And that was the big thing we were saying last year was, I mean, Modbury were already an NPL team just playing in State League 1 by the end of it. Kind of maybe you could say Raiders are similar now. But and then now, I mean, I think before the season we were saying, Modbury, no one thought they were going to get relegated, but no one obviously thought they were going to go this far. And the big thing for me when I watch them is, and you know this about Modbury teams, is they're always going to be physical and very defensively solid, but these guys can play. Like, they can really get the ball on the deck and play their football. And I think it was the first goal they scored against Metro in the first leg, where it was literally back to front from Ryan Nield all the way forward. And then when you've got the McCabe's, you've got top end talent in the final third. So
absolutely, and some other storylines as well. You can't forget them. They're not in the grand final, but I think Metro Star got one of the best storylines. Danny Greystone coming in and bringing in Temuskovsky and just what they brought, the whole team. They've got not just one player, but they've got like a whole team of whole starting 11 that's some incredible players. So I think you can't go past that. And even Campbelltown City.
Yeah, I was about to say, Campbelltown City, when a side like Metro starts as a season like they've just had, it's very easy to forget the side was just 3 points behind them.
Absolutely.
And it
was very close as well.
The whole time. They were just... It felt like the whole season was just one game was separating them.
And there was a lot of gap between.
And Metro Stars just kept holding serve. And what ended up being the difference was those games between them.
Absolutely. And and they also knocked off MacArthur FC. Can't forget that in the Australia Cup as well. But the other storylines as well, a bit of funny ones from the commentary area, but seeing people getting hit with their but in their head when they're watching the game is hilarious when the ball comes flying and cracked them in the head a couple of times.
I think that was a Mullen family member.
I think it was a Mullen family member at a Campbelltown game, but there's also a game, I think it was at Service FM saying with one guy in the crowd hit it 3 times, I think, in the game. So that was a good one. And also from the scaffold, I think, we can't forget me falling off a scaffold. Well, not falling off it, but
you're making it sound falling on
falling on the lap of the grand finalist head coach Vlado Blazeka. So that was a storyline not to be forgotten.
What was your statistics on TikTok, Johnny?
I think it was 15,000 on the Football SA TikTok.
Then when you fought, I'm trying to remember, when you fell and it was like a moment of Vlado's going, you okay, Johnny? Or like,
it's like, you're right, Johnny.
And in that moment, I'm gazing into his eyes, while I'm laying on his lap. But that was interesting. And that's only to say that was only 20 minutes into me meeting him as well. So I met him that day before kickoff. So, well, that's how you get very close to someone. But, well, let's get very close into the grand final. The RAA NPL SA Grand Final presented by Service FM. A big game. Modbury Jets taking on LA United Youth. We've seen some great players across both teams. The McCabe's stand out. Hernandez as well for Modbury Jets. But then also on LA United. We can't go past some of those youngsters as well. Nestoria Nkunda played one game all season. Comes into the finals. He lights up the league in the A-League. We might see him again in the grand final.
I think we will.
Yeah. And, well, you got the other big names like Alagich, but don't forget the ones we mentioned before as well. Ryan White, Stephen Hall, these youngsters, they're producing some great football. Yeah. And, well, how excited are you for this game here, the grand final? What are you expecting, Antonis?
Yeah, for those names are a testament to South Australian football, all those clubs that help develop them. A couple of things to keep an eye out for me. Number one, Adelaide United, their centre-back pairing. For the majority of the season, it was Kane Vidmar and Panayotis Kikianis. Kane Vidmar's obviously gone to Western United to sign a professional contract, and good luck to him. Kikianis is injured. So the centre-back pairing is Fergus Lynch and John Paul Mbembe. One's a fullback.
Yep.
The other one's working his way into senior football. Can they be vulnerable? But then when you've got someone like Josh Hernandez that scored 2 late goals in the finals, you got the McCabe brothers, you got Stefan Mateo, who is a professional pest up there trying to push you. I think that's something to really look out for. I guess that battle against that physicality of Modbury up there and that inconsistency of players in the centre-back role for United. And I've got a few more stuff to mention, but we'll get to it after when it comes to players.
Well, what about you, Christian?
Well, it was actually one thing I was thinking about today, and this guy always impressed me when I watch him, and I'm going to, zag a little bit. Joku Wall, the left-back from Modbury Jets, always impresses me when I watch him. I think he's an excellent 1v1 defender in particular. And if Nesta's playing, I think you've got a really fascinating matchup just there as well. And then, of course, Antonis has just mentioned the centre-back pairing and how it's a little bit makeshift. I mean, potentially the McCabe brothers are now licking their lips at that prospect. So that's interesting too. But then at the other end, Luka Jovanovic might feel that on a Tim Henderson and Matt Mullen that he's got the speed to exploit them in behind. So a lot of interesting individual battles, I think, across the pitch.
Mm-hmm. And just quickly, you mentioned Nestor Nkunda. I think his inclusion is a real big thing, not just for his performance, but how many plays he can take away from the rest of those talented players. Because if you've got a team full of that talent, you have to respect Nestor, obviously, but you can't, I guess, double and triple team him because you've got so many players that can hurt you there. And I just want to make that point I was going to make earlier about, obviously, everyone thinks Adelaide United is going to enter as favourites. They've got the A-League boys in. Well, Modbury's beaten United twice this year. Once with a real makeshift team by United, but the first time Modbury beat them 2-1 at Service FM Stadium, actually.
That was a huge game. I was down there for that.
And Jesse Francesca scored an absolute stunner that day. And so did Joey Macheda, who used to play for Adelaide United. But this was Adelaide United's lineup on that day, and it sounds very strong. Well, we got Giuseppe Bobolina, Kane Vidmar, Ethan Cox, Panache Madana, Asad Kasumovic, Bernardo, Panayotis Kikianis, Luka Jovanovic, Musa Toure, Luke Duzel, Fabian Taladera, and even Nathan Manatidis came off the bench. So when you've got a talent like that to bring off the bench, it tells you all about that strength. And Modbury and the physicality helped them get on top that day. And I think that's the key for them winning, making them uncomfortable and showing them who's going to boss, I guess, that football.
I watched the first half alongside you, and then the second half when Modbury scored that cracker with Jesse Francesca, I was alongside O'Dowdy and also Tim Henderson, who was on the sideline, both injured.
Yeah, right.
So watching them celebrate as well was awesome to watch and see that moment. But I think it's going to be an exciting grand final to watch. You can't write off Modbury Jets, can you? Because they've in that game especially as well. You can't write them off at the last minute. They come back. I crowned them the comeback kings earlier in the season because when they're down, they just come back harder. It's something that I think Morris Natali instills in his side to come out there firing and never give up.
It's what Christian said before, that they're not afraid to play their football. If you have a look at the goals they've scored 46 goals this year, which I think is like top 2 or 3 in the league. It says it all when a newly promoted side is performing like that, you know? And it doesn't matter how many they concede, they've actually conceded 50.
Yeah. When was the last time a team with negative goal difference made grand final?
Exactly, that's another point.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how many they concede, they're happy to play their football. And their priority, what it seems to me, is making the other side uncomfortable. And to beat a side full of talented young kids is making them uncomfortable, making them, pushing them off their game.
Well, I was just going to jump in because I think you've referenced this before, probably in these 2 games where Modbury have beaten Adelaide already this season, is the physicality. And I think that's going to be a big factor. And it's not like Adelaide United have no physicality, but Modbury will feel, I think, and they're going to be very well backed at the stadium for sure. And they're going to feel potentially that they can really get on top of Adelaide from a physical perspective. But one other thing, in terms of we're just talking about, who might be the favourites and stuff, it's going to be interesting for both teams because, I mean, I'm not sure. I can't really tell you who the favourite is, right? So do Modbury feel like, no, we can kind of dominate the game and assert ourselves? Or do Adelaide actually think, particularly with the possession-based style that they like to play, that they can actually get on the front foot?
I think both sides have a different idea of what dominance would be. On the day, I think Adelaide would like to boss the ball and exploit the numbers that Modbury would give them when they play their football. And I think Modbury will feel like, we will make it hard for you, we'll hit you hard, and then hit you on the counter-attack. So it just depends how you view it for me. But again, one thing about this is no one expects this grand final. And I think the unknown for me is exciting because I think we had all kind of assumed Campbelltown Metro Stars would have another go at it. We know how those 2 sides play. We got neither one. So it's going to be this unknown factor. And honestly, I don't think either side thought a month ago, you know what, we're going to be playing on that day. So for them to be at that point, it's kind of like it gives you license to play your game and just enjoy it.
It's going to be an enjoyable game, that's for sure. And for one, I'm looking forward to seeing the matchup. But it's not an unusual matchup as well because the Federation Cup final for the reserves was Modbury Jets. LA United went all the way down to penalties for that game as well. That was a huge game, and that was ahead of the Metro Stars and Campbelltown City. But if you had told someone that that reserves lineup would be the NPL Grand Final lineup, you would never have predicted that.
Not quite to that extent. There's a lot of those players. But interesting question, and I hope this comes back because that'll be very exciting. If it goes to penalties, does Maurice Natali call up Luke Luongo, who looks a bit of a penalty specialist after that game? So keep this in mind.
Well, Luke was on the bench for that game. Will most likely be on the bench for this game and was in goals, as you said, for that one. But also Fergus Lynch was in that lineup for LA United as well. So that's, there's a couple known names in there and, looking forward to seeing how that pans out. But it's going to be exciting. What a great weekend of football. We're spoilt here in South Australia and no matter what our compatriots say interstate in Victoria or New South Wales, our mates over there, a little bit of banter, but they'll be loving to be here right now in our shoes.
Hashtag SA great.
Well, boys, it's been a pleasure. Before we go, do you boys want to make a prediction for this grand final? We're going to leave it alone this time around.
Yeah, I just don't know how. There's just so many unknown variables. With Adelaide United, you don't even know who's going to play yet.
Yeah.
So
there could be some big ins. So.
I'm just hoping for an exciting game, but I think the way both teams approach football, I think we should expect an exciting game.
But that's going to be my point is I hope both teams approach the game the way they have all season.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want it's a final and both teams go back in their shells and play safe and don't throw caution to the wind.
Boys, what an occasion it's been to preview the grand finals, to talk about some of our favourite moments, and I wish we could go longer because there's a lot to talk about, but we've got to hurry up and get this done because the grand finals is going to be a huge weekend.
You can read more about the semi-finals on Front Page Football.
Yes, you can, and that will also be up on the Football South Australia pages as well, boys. You do a great job all year covering the game on Front Page Football and commentating this year as well. Well done to the both of you making your debuts in the commentary box. Easy, hard, what do you think?
Enjoying it.
Enjoying it. All right, cool. And you've improved a lot since your early days when you went, yes, when the first goal went in.
It wasn't a yes, it was like,
Well, we'll leave you on that.
And go back and watch Mark Marina's goal against Mudbury in round 2, and you understand why my reaction was that.
Well, we'll leave you on that note for today. And, well, thank you for joining us for this preview. It's been a pleasure having you here. But Christian Marchetti, Antonis Pagonis, thank you for joining me, boys, from Front Page Football. I'm Johnny Kecko from Kicking It Local. That was the Kicking It Local Grand Final preview. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Football South Australia. Make sure you check out all the action this weekend on NPL TV. Thank you for joining us.